Hi, I'm Nick Palmisano.
And I'm Matt Finney.
And this is the Bad News Network. Two soldiers were killed and 6 were wounded when a man dressed in an Afghani army uniform opened fire on them. In a statement to the media, Colonel Sonny Leggett has said they have not ruled out the influence of the Taliban or ISIS on this attack. This is not the first such incident, but one of many that have occurred over the last 2 decades. President Trump traveled to Dover Air Force Base to pay respects to the 2 fallen soldiers. Fair winds, gentlemen. After such depressing news, let me add a little bit of levity. It appears that Ben Stiller and Mitt Romney are now friends after Ben Stiller appeared during a Senate hearing and Romney passed him a note that said, "I can't believe you have the nerve to sit in front of this committee after you tried to assassinate the Prime Minister of Malaysia." That has to be the best thing I've heard all week. Now let's have a dance-off, gentlemen.
It's a walk-off. It's a walk-off.
Residents in an apartment complex in India were afforded the luxury of free mixed drinks this week from their own tap. Now, we're not talking high-end cocktails here, but we are talking about a mixture of all sorts of alcohol coming straight through the same tap. Or in other words, Wednesday. It was a combination of beer, brandy, and rum all mixed into the water supply. Under a court order, 6,000 liters of alcohol were buried in a pit not far from the apartment complex. Over time, that alcohol seeped into the ground, which seeped into the water, which seeped into the plumbing, which seeped into the apartment complex. Do you see what I'm saying? Reports say that children couldn't go to school, people couldn't go to work, and everybody was having a great time up until the mass hangover of India of 2020.
President Trump admitted this week, after impeachment proceedings had closed, that he did in fact send Rudy Giuliani to the Ukraine to investigate the Bidens. This was contrary to what he said before the acquittal, so we have that going for us, which is nice.
In other news, Democrats are considering impeaching the president again. This time for blackmail, money laundering, and bribery. And I'm just throwing this out there. Maybe you should consider beating him in the polls.
What do you get when you combine a 68-meter tower, a bungee cord, and a pig? The cure for the coronavirus. Or a publicity stunt. You decide. A tied-up, squealing pig was thrown off a giant tower at the Red Wine Town theme park this week in southwest China. Cheers, laughter, and screams intermingled in this video that has become a viral sensation that kind of makes China look bad. The park's owner, when questioned, stated, "We let the pig go first because pork prices have been high, but recently they've really dropped." Ugh. Fun fact, China doesn't currently have any laws that prevent for the mistreatment of livestock or domestic animals. This obviously leads to cruel stunts just like this one, but it also can potentially lead to other dangerous things. Like, I don't know, mutated viruses in animals that people don't normally eat that are processed illegally that result in a worldwide epidemic and a plunging of the international markets. Just shooting in the dark here. Maybe I'll have a Corona.
In Virginia, it's considered a Class 4 misdemeanor to have sex outside of marriage. You can be fined up to $250 for not putting a ring on it. Democratic delegate Mark Levine is on a mission to put an end to this senseless law. The Virginia Supreme Court struck it down in 2005, labeling it as unconstitutional, but it does still remain in Virginia code. The bill to end this law moves to the Senate this week, because that's among the pressing matters in Virginia at this moment. Levine was quoted as saying, "How can Virginia be for lovers if lovers can't love each other?"
Virginia Democratic lawmakers have pushed the assault weapons ban through the State House this week. It now goes to the Senate, where a number of moderate Democrats have stated they will not put in place a gun ban. Mein Führer Ralph Northam has stated that the only reason he wants to ban AR-15s is to stop mass shooters, and that this is the only way. I suppose we should just take his word for it that gun deaths have spiked 60% in the last 3 years. Let me tell you what hasn't happened. That. In all seriousness, a 2017 FBI report states that rifle deaths account for only 4% of all gun deaths. This is just one of many facts that debunks Northam's claims. So as more and more of these laws keep going into effect, it becomes pretty clear that they're actually not being put into place to stop people from shooting each other, but rather to have greater control over the population. Thus far, the Democrats have passed universal background checks, which we all know criminals don't use anyway. They've passed red flag laws, which essentially removes due process for all legal gun owners and reads a lot like the Salem witch trials. They've put in place a purchase limit of 1 handgun per month. That's really going to stop them. They've put a law in place that requires gun owners to report stolen or lost guns within 24 hours. And they've given local governments the ability to ban guns in public buildings and public spaces. Again, all of these things are things that criminals will not care about or pay attention to. This would be a comedy sketch if it wasn't comprised of actual lawmakers.
20-year-old Lucas Gerhard from Lake Superior State University is facing up to 20 years for posting a picture of his rifle. The college student bought a new rifle and posted it on Snapchat, saying this will probably make the snowflakes melt. According to reports, 2 students reported Gerhard to campus security. A friend had shown the Snapchat to a woman who had previously had a political argument with Gerhard, and she reported him. When security approached him about the post, Gerhard stated that he's a conservative on a highly liberal campus and figured that the post would melt snowflakes' minds. Well, he nailed that one, and then he was arrested for making a terrorist threat. Supporters of Gerhard have been extremely vocal about this infringement on his First Amendment rights and also the fragility of the emotional balance of his accusers. Gerhard's hearing will take place in the spring once the snow has melted.
Andrew Yang dropped out of the presidential race this week while campaigning in New Hampshire. Yang stated that he's a guy that crunches the numbers, and the numbers stated he wasn't going to win. It was an odd moment for him to drop out because regardless of what anyone in the media is going to tell you, these early primaries don't typically show who's going to win the whole thing. In fact, they almost never do. His supporters were visibly disappointed, but they still stuck around for hours and hours to hang out with their Yang out.
A Kansas man created his own website and a pitch to get him a girlfriend. 47-year-old Jeff Gebhardt put out an offer for $25 grand for any matchmaker that could find him a girlfriend. Sounds simple.
Or is it?
The girl has to pass a screening survey. The matchmaker doesn't get the money unless they've dated for a year. After that, the money is doled out in $5,000 increments over the course of 5 years. But if they break up, you don't get the rest of it. Jeff set up a website with a professional video outlining him, his endeavor, and a full spread bio sheet. He says his friends would describe him as a fun-loving smartass. Sign me up. On the one hand, I applaud the guy's ingenuity and entrepreneurial drive. But at the same time, it comes off as sort of desperate and narcissistic. Also, that deal sucks, Jeff. This just in, Michael Avenatti has been indicted on all counts. Apparently, he did try to bribe Nike out of $20 million. Can't believe that didn't work out for him, what with Nike being such a small, weak, not powerful organization.
And finally, in Florida man news, a Lakeland County river otter attacked a woman, her dog, and her daughter this week. Initially, the pissed off otter went after the canine of the group, a distant, embarrassing remnant of what was once a wolf that we now call a French bulldog. This sad, snorting, pathetic creature offered no defense to the battle-hardened river otter and attempted to retreat to his home. The daughter attempted to shut the door on the otter right as the dog passed the threshold, but the otter was too much for the slow reflex child, and it sank its teeth into her arm. It quickly returned to beating the bejesus out of the dog bred for weakness and inability to breathe until the mother arrived on the scene. The full-grown female human pounced on the otter using her much larger size and opposable thumbs and grabbed it, wrenched it away from the animal, and threw it out the door. The river otter retreated to the lake that it called its home and disappeared into the inky blackness. After an extensive hunt for the apex predator that involved the downing of a helicopter and many wounded police, they finally killed the creature after a hail of gunfire. Just kidding, they eventually caught him and released him in another river. Needless to say, the whole endeavor was utter chaos. And with that, I'm Nick Palmisano.
And I'm Matt Finney.
And this is the Bad News Network. Our news is at least as bad as the news you're getting already, and have a happy Valentine's Day, a phenomenal President's Day, and remember, you can use code BNN for 25% off at rangerup.com. Have a good weekend, guys.